scream ripped through the darkness. Sharp, violent, unmistakable. The dogs froze. Every hunter turned toward the ridge. Before the echo faded, we knew exactly what it meant. The hogs were back. Bigger, meaner. And this time they were headed straight for the cattle pens. Before we dive into this fight, hit subscribe. It helps us keep documenting the battle for America's farmland. The Tennessee River Valley lay still beneath a pale moon, thick humidity clinging to the air. But the calm shattered when the ground began trembling beneath our boots. This land has survived storms, floods, droughts, yet nothing compares to the devastation feral hogs bring. They aren't pests. They're living wrecking balls, destroying crops, ripping irrigation apart, spreading disease, and costing America billions every year. Our story begins on a warm November night during corn harvest, when the soil itself seemed to rise as the first wave of hogs erupted from the tree line. Just hours earlier, the valley glowed gold with ripe corn, families harvested side by side, machines humming across the fields. But as the sun slipped behind the hills, a familiar anxiety settled in. Last year, hogs erased entire fields in a single night. This year, locals reported herds of 100 or more, bolder, more destructive, charging at vehicles and livestock like the land belonged to them. At 11:43 p.m., my phone buzzed. "They're here, big group, bring everything." I grabbed my gear and tore down gravel roads toward the outskirts of the valley. Headlights cut through dust as I passed farms barely holding on, families who poured everything into their land only to watch hogs undo it overnight. By the time I reached the farm, a small army stood waiting. Farmers, ranchers, hunters, people who had been fighting this war for years. They weren't there for sport. They were there to protect their homes. Chris tossed me a thermal scope. "You'll need this." Saw at least 30 headed to the creek. The dogs paced in circles, noses twitching. We jumped onto ATVs and rolled into the cornfields. Barely 10 minutes in, a massive silhouette rose among the stalks, a boar pushing 300 pounds. I fired. The shot echoed through the valley, but the hog kept running. That's the terror of feral hogs. Thick hides, brutal strength, no fear. Farmers told us stories as we pushed deeper. One lost 12 calves this year. Another found the irrigation torn to pieces. A third watched hogs rip fencing apart, inviting coyotes into his goat pen. It's not just crops, it's water contamination, disease, erosion, ecological collapse. Suddenly, the dogs erupted. We sprinted to a ravine just as a huge sow burst from the brush, piglets scattering behind her. We dropped the closest boar in one clean shot. The rest vanished into the dark. Silence returned, but only for a moment. A deep growl rolled across the field. Then a boar the size of a motorcycle exploded toward us. Chris fired and missed. Someone yelled, "Move!" And we dove aside as the beast thundered past, scraping sparks off an ATV frame. We regrouped, firing into the chaos. One hog dropped. Another squealed and fell. A third escaped into the ravine. The air stank of gunpowder and torn earth. Near dawn, we reached a small farm on the valley edge and saw devastation worse than anything all night. Feed bags shredded, troughs ripped out, young trees uprooted, soil churned into a wasteland. The farmer stood stunned. "There goes my whole winter," he whispered. We promised to help, but first the fight had to continue. As fog lifted off the river, we moved into deeper territory. Thick woods, tall grass, wetlands perfect for ambushes. After an hour of quiet, 3 hogs burst into a clearing. I dropped the largest one with a single shot. But everything changed moments later. The dogs went insane. We found a huge hog cornered in a pool of water, steam rising off its back. One wrong move and it could kill a man. I fired through the brush, clean, precise. It collapsed. Then the woods exploded, branches snapped, hooves pounded, grunts echoed everywhere. A whole sounder, 20 or more, charged through the trees. We scrambled. Shots cracked. Dog barked wildly. It was chaos, like fighting shadows in fog. When it ended, the survivors fled toward the river. We knew they'd be back. Hogs always come back. Later, we gathered around a small campfire on the ridge, exhausted, mud-covered, thinking about what comes next. Hunting alone won't save us. Traps help until hogs outsmart them. Helicopters work until funds run out. This war isn't won in a night. It's fought one valley at a time. Someone finally asked, "Do you think we can win this?" No one answered, because deep down we all knew the hogs aren't slowing down. Not tonight, not ever. Dawn settled over the Tennessee River Valley as the last echoes of the stampede faded into the ridgeline. The world felt bruised, grass flattened, mud torn apart, fence posts broken, the scent of fear still hanging in the air. Birds sang cautiously as if testing whether the night's chaos had truly ended. But for the farmers here, normal was gone. Feral hogs had rewritten the rules. We regrouped near a cedar windbreak where tractors sat during the harvest. The night had drained every one of us. Dogs lay panting in the dirt, hunters leaned on their rifles, and a few farmers stared quietly at the fresh gouges carved through their land. No one spoke until Glenn finally did. "They tore through my back pasture last night," he said. 10 minutes. 10 minutes and it was all gone. He pointed toward long trenches ripped into the earth. It looked like a tornado had ripped through, if a tornado had tusks. Every year, the damage grows worse. And every year, these families lose more than crops. They lose security, legacy, hope. Their land isn't just soil, it's history, and hogs threaten to erase it. A faint rumble drifted across the valley, raising every hair on the dogs' backs. Dust rose at the far edge of the fields. Another group on the move. "Round two," Chris muttered. We jumped onto ATVs and tore across the fields. The sun was rising, painting the corn gold. Ahead, the hogs sprinted toward an untouched section of crop. If they reached it, another season's work would be destroyed. We closed in fast. Sunlight flashed off the hides of a sounder led by a huge boar, 330 pounds at least. Vultures circled overhead, sensing the chaos that always follows hogs. Biologists say their presence wipes out entire ecosystems. Water contamination, disappearing deer populations, destroyed nests, disease spread across livestock. They feed on anything alive or dead, and the longer they stay, the harder they are to remove. Chris braked hard and fired. The boar staggered, then charged. I shot twice, my second round dropping at just 10 feet in front of us. The rest scattered into the woods like a black storm breaking apart. We pushed into the trees, tracking the stragglers. The woods seemed quiet, but the dogs pulled us toward a dry creek bed. Below, a cluster of hogs hid in the shade. The big sow bolted first, and the ravine exploded with motion. Shots cracked through the hollow. Dust rose. Dogs barked as hogs scrambled up the bank. Glenn dropped one clean. Chris spun and took another mid-sprint. The rest escaped into the brush, and now, separated, they were even more dangerous. Back on the ridge, we caught our breath. The valley below looked devastated, fields ripped open, fences smashed, troughs flipped, irrigation torn to shreds. A section of corn looked as if a whole army had marched straight through it. We sat beneath a huge oak, letting exhaustion settle into our bones. Smoke from a small fire drifted upward as we talked about what the future might look like. Hotter winters, exploding hog populations, billions in damages, and the terrifying reality that farmers here were one bad season away from losing everything. Still, no one talked about quitting. "We fight because we have to," one farmer said quietly. "No one else is going to save us." Before we finished, the dogs growled again. Something moved in the grass. A small hog burst out, charging blindly. I fired once and dropped it inches from our boots. The valley wasn't done testing us. We moved toward a network of cattle trails. Tim joined us, pointing out fresh tracks where an enormous herd had passed. We followed the trail until squeals erupted from the cedars. A massive boar appeared with sows and juveniles behind him. For a second, we froze, then the clearing became chaos. Shots fired. Hogs split in every direction. Piglets scattered. One hog sprinted straight toward me. I stepped aside and fired, the recoil biting into my shoulder. Chris and Glenn dropped two more. Dogs tore into the trees, chasing the rest. The clearing fell silent, except for our heavy breathing. We'd thinned them out, but everyone knew hog populations rebound faster than any predator can keep up. Tomorrow, next week, they'd be back. By afternoon, heat shimmered across the fields. We headed to the marshes, prime hog feeding ground. Mud sucked at our boots as we spread out. Then we heard it, the churn of bodies in deep mud. 8 hogs fed in the reeds. I fired first. The boar dropped instantly. Others crashed through the water as Chris and Glenn hit 2 more. Tim took one near the clearing edge. Dogs splashed into the marsh and cornered the last hog, giving us a final clean shot. When the valley finally went quiet, we stood together, sweat-soaked, rifles cooling, dogs circling proudly. For the first time all day, it felt like we'd taken something back. But everyone knows the truth. This war won't end tonight, or tomorrow, or anytime soon. Hogs keep coming, smarter, faster, more destructive each year. As we loaded the ATVs and headed back to the barns, the valley lay behind us in wounded silence. Farmers stood on porches surveying what was left. I turned to the camera. If your community has battled feral hogs, drop a comment below. And if this fight matters to you, hit like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Night settled across the valley. Somewhere out there, a hog screamed, and we all knew the fight wasn't over.